All right, so we're going to get into the practitioner talks now. We've got three of these. Vik is going to dig in around their FinOps ecosystem and chargeback, and then we're going to hear from a few other folks after that. Vik, are you able to unmute yourself? Probably not, because I just changed the muting settings because we were having issues. Let me unmute you.
Are you able to? Yes, are you able to hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
All right.
Hi, Vik. Welcome. Yeah, over to you. Excited to hear your story.
Sure. First, thank you for the opportunity to you, Ashley, Joe, Steve, Rob, to present here at the summit. I'm a FinOps Manager at Cigna. I've been in this particular role, well, part-time, mostly in last 3 years. And our journey, like everybody else, when we started with FinOps, initially we were in the crawl phase, trying to understand where all our accounts is, where all our spend is. And then moving from there, we went through our walk and run phase. And currently I would say we are in run phase 3 years into this journey. And let me talk about what we do here. So currently, like everyone knows on here, like FinOps is a fairly new concept. Pretty excited with JR and team how they have expanded this. People did not know about that. Like we were doing it in our silos. We did not know actually the term and then what all collaboration is, FinOps is. And again, it's a journey, right? Your goal of FinOps is for the teams to understand your cloud finances and get excellence with the operations of those finances. So for this talk, I'm going to be focusing on the inform piece for chargeback and showback and some budgeting and forecasting. Next slide, please. So as the first FinOps principle, right, there's an operating model that's been defined by FinOps Foundation, right? And that is primarily it's cross-functional. Not everybody can be in the same team. And for collaboration, we ensure that we partner with different areas and businesses to help us achieve the optimization and the excellence we're trying to achieve with cloud finances. Next slide, please. So the key thing that we look into is why do we need cost allocation, right? That's one thing, is that what happens with how do we manage the finances, right? I'm part of the Center of Cloud Enablement at Cigna, and everything here in our COE, we get all the costs that come from cloud, right? We are responsible for paying the cloud providers. We are responsible for doing our capacity planning, right? Reserve and savings plan, etc. We get all those like network connectivity that's to the cloud, any software that we install for governance, etc. So all that cost comes to us. And what do we do with that cost, right? It's not something that we are going to eat that cost with the operating model that we have. We have to ensure that costs are allocated out. At the same time, the goal is that we allocate all the costs that's coming from CSP, which are direct costs, and anything that is, which we cannot like see, we cannot do granular tagging for it, right? Those all have to be allocated out. So the goal, end of the day, is you have to ensure that your net costs are zero in your expense center. And that's what requires your showback and financial cost recovery becomes very important for cost allocation. Next slide. How do we do this? So what we saw the FinOps operating model, right? We saw that it's a collaboration. So what we are doing is we are collaborating with different teams on our side, and we basically, it's building partnerships. If you build partnerships, you make sure that folks who are responsible for the cost are accountable for the costs, right? And they do the right thing for cost transparency, cost optimization, allocation, chargeback, etc. And what this particular slide shows you, it sums up as far as what the COE FinOps ecosystem is here. The tools and technology we are using, even though we are using some tools and technologies that are not CSP specific, you still rely on CSP specific tools for some native capabilities, right? So that's the key. We have to partner with the CSPs. With the finance, we are partnering, of course, for our chargeback, right? Once we look at the cost, where does the cost go? So that's the egress piece that we have to partner with the finance. And in addition to that, we also partner with them regarding what our tagging strategies, what visibility or showback or transparency they're looking for. That's another key thing. And the right side of the equation is doing all this stuff you can do in crawl and walk, right? But then you need automation. A team of like a few people cannot do this, right? So you need definitely to automate. So that's where your run phase comes in. And then we have included automation, and I'm speaking at FinOps X on June 21st, and we can talk more about how we are going our run phase with cost allocation. Next slide, please.
Yeah, this is such a great slide. Are these slides you're able to share? I'm sure people are going to ask.
To some extent, yeah.
Okay. So maybe not published, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Great. 1 second. Let me try and advance here. Sorry, it looks like we had somebody annotating. I just turned off annotation, and I'll try and get that mark off. There you go.
So where do we end up? So after doing all that, right? Who, what, why? We still face challenges, right? And the key things are, again, I'm going to focus on the forecasting and allocation of costs, right? Allocation of costs are important for budgeting and forecasting. Unless you provide the full charges to the organization delivery teams who are using your cloud, how do we ensure that they're doing the correct forecasting or they're doing accurate forecasting? So they go hand in hand. Industry-wide, you can see the industry set of FinOps, right? There are still companies that are looking at that, they're looking to see those challenges, right? We still see 23% on allocation and 26% on forecasting. So I'll talk about in the next slide as far as what some steps of where we are, how do we got from crawl to run, and then we can talk details. You can hear my talk at FinOps X. Next slide, please. All right. So the key things here, what are the cost types? So we have bucketed those things into two sets of costs. One is a direct cost that you see. You can see in any of the tools we have got, like we've got active cloudability, right? You can see all the CSP costs. They've integrated very well. It's multiple CSPs, right? So you can see all your services in that tool. But then the challenge comes in is that what about the shared costs? What about that 20%? What happens to our network costs? Like, yes, the VPCs are in the accounts, right? Individual accounts, but what happens to transit gateway? That's the funnel or the router, you call it in the legacy world, right? That connects you from your on-prem to your cloud. What about those costs? What about any compliance tools that you're running on your accounts, right? What about if you're not using KS, you're using Kafka's, et cetera, or something else, OpenShift as an example, right? What about those costs? How do you distribute those costs out? And lastly, of course, is enterprise support. If you've got enterprise support from AWS or with Azure, you see that those costs are not associated with individual accounts. It comes to your like organization account or your parent account, right? So the goal here is that how do we get to that 100% cost allocation and chargebacks? Next slide, please. So this is the slide that's a preamble to our FinOps X 2021, right? Is how do we get from the initial walk, crawl to run phase, right? So the first thing is to understand what all the accounts are, right? You need to understand what your bill is. Where we started from, we had people in the company using credit cards, opening individual accounts, right? So the key was to get everything onto a single organization. That's one key thing. So to get all the billing, right? So then the second thing was like, where do we get the billing? Do we still have the billing go in the individual expense centers? That did not scale, right? Because people did not everybody was knowledgeable with finances. And as you know, engineers are the one who are opening the accounts, they're managing the accounts, and they are like oxymorons, right? So from the finance versus development pieces. So we ensured that to get the visibility, we got the billing centralized. And then that gives us synergies that enabled us to see what our total cost spend was, and we were able to enroll in our enterprise discount program with AWS. Long commitment, but still it's a good way to go instead of leaving money on the table. And coming back to our run phase, so the first thing was that then we started working with different teams, understand especially with the providers, right, how the cost consultation, understand what else can we do from optimization perspective. Then we went into reserve capacity. After we got that, we looked at different tools. We initially started with Splunk with basic dashboarding to get some transparency, but then we went to other tools which gave us more transparency. And the key thing was, especially the consumers they were looking for, is I only care about my area. I don't care about other applications. I don't care about what you're doing in somebody else's cloud. I care only what I need to look at, what my budget is, what my forecast needs to be, what my charges are, right? So the tool that we shortlisted was our Aptio tool, where we gave us all the functionality, right? And we were able to give them the visibility. We were able to give them the visibility for forecasting, budgeting within the tool itself. But then, hold on, that's all direct costs, right? What happened to the shared cost? So we stumbled upon that piece in this area, and then we started collecting all the information for our direct costs, for the shared cost, or what additional cost that's coming in that the teams are not seeing, and we are eating it in our expense centers. And that's where the shared cost allocation and chargeback comes in.
Hey, Vik, this is fantastic slide and content. I don't know if people are seeing in the message. We need to move into the next area, but is there like a final message you want to leave, or the takeaway you want people to have?
Sure. So key thing is that make sure that you have got visibility into your costs. Make sure you understand what your cost variants are, right? And look for where we can reduce that variability in that cost, and look into the cost allocation.
So true. And, if you're willing at your talk at X, and I throw this out to all the other speakers as well, if you could share, maybe the failures as well, what went bad, what you wish you could redo and go back over. And people, I think, always love to hear those. So this is fantastic. Looking forward to seeing the longer version of it. And thank you for putting that together.
Sure.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.